This is Eric from Ember. You're watching Aftershocks TV.
All right, Mike and Tom, we're back with you folks here for another episode of Aftershocks TV right here on the CMS Network. I hope everyone's having a great week. Tom, great to see you, bud. How you doing, man? How's everything going this week so far?
It's a great week. We had shitty storms here in the Carolinas today, but never as bad as anticipated, which is good. But, you know, just sitting down with you, having a good old Guinness here and
Nice.
shooting the shit and talking metal.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to doing this episode this week. You know, we had a great one last week, I thought. It was great chatting with Eric from Doom sludge metal band Ember, another really solid new band that's out there. And, you know, I used that parentheses as new because they've been around for 10 years, which is, it's kind of like the standard these days, as we talked about in an interview with them. But, you know, just it's, you know, just a lot different how it used to be. Right? Remember, it used to be, it was like you were a new band, you put out like an EP, then you put out a full length, you did a tour, and you were already known as like a seasoned veteran band, you know?
That's right. Yeah, but that was a great interview and a phenomenal album. I mean, my goodness, it was so heavy. I mean, we spoke about that, obviously, you know, for 30 minutes or so, but and this is what we're going to try and do, Matt, I think, with this show is just introduce new bands that we get a liking to. I mean, I can't talk about a band that I don't have some form of an interest in. And this is what this show is already doing, is introducing me to new bands. And we've got some great interviews coming up over the next weeks and months too. So we're off to a great start. You know, the feedback has been really positive, and my wife actually shared us on TikTok talking about Kiss. I was going, so go figure, you know.
Very cool, man. But yeah, I mean, speaking of new music, there is so much, you know, great stuff coming out these days, both, you know, new bands, older bands with new music, all that good stuff. And I know you're like me, Tom. I mean, we've got that bug or that itch that we always got to scratch, I should say, when it comes to hearing new music consistently, not just once every month or something. It's like every day or other day we're listening to new shit. So, I mean, anything you've heard recently that you would recommend that you're listening to right now?
Yeah, I know. Last week we said we're going heavy, and I'm going to go heavy again. There's a British death metal band, and I got to read this right because it's so crazy, right? Cruciamentum, and they are so good. It's just typical kind of immolation, incantation type stuff.
Oh, wow.
Immense. But there's another band, which is their total end of the spectrum, which is another British band, coincidentally, called Sleep Token. Now, these guys, the reason that I'm even talking about Sleep Token tonight, first of all, is I was listening to, you know, a lot of the podcasts like Eddie Trunks and all, they're all doing the year end and year in review and whatever it is. And they had about, you know, 20 callers call in, and people, that's Sleep Token right there. Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. But, a lot of callers were calling in talking about their top 5, top 10, whatever. And Sleep Token kept on coming back. And I said, who the heck are these guys talking about? And then when somebody called into Eddie and he was just talking about it, so I said, I have to check this out. And I was just blown the fuck away is how good they are. Because normally I do not gravitate towards anything that has a slight alternative. They've got a really kind of heavy death side when it jumps in. They got this kind of post-metal, not quite sure what that is, but that's what they said they are. And I just got drawn in on their latest album, released in late 22, early 23, I think. Late 23, or maybe just in the last couple of weeks. I'm really kind of getting up to speed on this band. They're not a new band per se. They're 2016, but some of the stats are unbelievable. Their latest single, called The Summoning, has 14 million views on YouTube. 14 million, right? And a lot of people don't know who this band is. And on Spotify, they were averaging about 200,000 listeners per month about 3 months ago. They're now at 1.8 million per month 3 months later. So this band are making waves, and the band are called Sleep Token, and they don't have names. They go by this mysterious kind of, I guess, Kiss like our Crimson Glory.
Like Ghost, kind of like Ghost.
Yeah, that's what it is. But Sleep Token, check them out. And I'd love to maybe circle back on that another time. But they're really catching my attention this week.
Yeah, you know, I'm looking at those masks. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the old Mushroom Head mask.
Yeah.
With the X's and the stuff on their face. Yep. And, you know, it was funny when you told me about that you wanted to, you know, bring up the Sleep Token. I thought about it. I was like, that's something we could probably do maybe on the next episode is do something about bands that wear masks. Talk about them, whether
Sure.
we like them, what we don't, what do we think of it. I mean, listen, it's always an interesting thing when you have. I don't want to get too much into it, but I know a lot of people. They see it, they automatically don't like masks. Like, say, I loved Mushroom Head. Slipknot, I'm a fan of. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of Slipknot, but I do like them.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan.
I'm a Slipknot fan, but I'm not huge. It doesn't bother me either way. You wear a mask, you don't. As long as to me the music's good, that's fine with me. But definitely, I would say the music business, the industry itself, they like this because I mean, just from working in the business myself for years, one thing that A&R people always wanted to see is you have to have a story. If you're just some, four guys who just put an ad in the paper, you got together and you play it. Back in the day, that was fine. As time has gone on, once people started introducing more of the visuals and the theatrical stuff to their show, labels love to promote bands that either have a story or have great visuals or something a little different. And like you said, Sleep Token is sort of that mix between like a Ghost, Mushroom Head in terms of the visuals. Musically, obviously, very different. Like you said, the
Very
modern
different.
metal type
Very
of stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm not a fan, Matt. I'm not a fan of modern metal. Not that I'm not a fan of it.
I'm
It's
not
just
either, yeah.
I don't gravitate towards it like all like that because for me, a lot of these bands try to be different and they end up being very formulaic. They're not different at all. They end up being sounding like their peers. But this band has got something. But the stats are quite remarkable. And check them out on YouTube because the drummer is like Mike Portnoy and Danny Carey from Tool. He is fucking phenomenal. Like seriously, these guys can back it up because they're incredible players as live clips. But anyway, look, we're talking about Sleep Token. I'm just jumping in super quick about this week, so I think we're going to go back on these. But check them out, and love to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, no, and yeah, I mean, it's interesting. A couple of new bands I've been checking out. One of them is this band. I'll give you a couple of them I've been checking out. This band called Truism. Truism. They're from Poland, Polish band. It's like they have like I would say it's like a groove metal band. I would say. They said they're from Poland. If you took Pantera, Prong, and Lamb of God, kind of put them together, boom, that's what you get with Truism. I guess these guys are a bunch of. I don't really have a band pick because they're kind of pretty new. I don't think they really have one out there. They just got like a 6-7 song record out. I love it though. They were, I guess, it's like a super group, I guess, of all these musicians from Poland that are in, I guess, a bunch of bigger names, sort of death metal and thrash metal bands there. And I just simply love it. I think it's great. Check them out, Truism, if someone wants to check out a really good metal band. And it's interesting. I was just thinking, in terms of like new music, it's interesting how I want to get how do you go about, I should say, of listening, like your listening habits, So like, for instance, just real quick for me, I do a lot of my listening, obviously in my car, if I'm listening to new music. I also do a lot of it when I'm at the gym. I'm, 45 minutes to an hour. I can sit there and I really dial in. I get the headphones on and I get really into it. And so it's kind of interesting how I listen to new music because I usually start out by sampling a lot of the bands, getting a kind of an idea what it sounds like. And a lot of times I'll circle back to it later on, months later even, or even a year or so later. It's interesting. Because there's so much out there. It's so hard. You know how it is back in the day, right? It was easy. You bought it, a new, you heard it on the radio, you saw it on MTV or whatever it was. You liked it. You picked up the record and you played the thing to death, right?
Yep.
Like we all did.
Yep.
Now, because it's just so at our fingertips, it's just a immense jukebox we have of music. It's hard to really just define like a specific way to listen. It's just kind of, I just kind of go with it. What about you? I mean, how do you what's the way you kind of listen to music, your habits?
I think there's I'm going to answer that two ways. Number one, it's how do you discover bands, and then how do you consume what you discover, right? And to your point, like the old ways are just not there anymore. Like sitting in one room with your headphones on, listening to an album, flipping over the side, and CDs came out. So basically, for me, I have completely moved away from the physical product, like 1,000% moved away from it. And I used to be the polar opposite. I used to be like a big collector of hundreds and hundreds of vinyl and 12 inches and picture discs. And going back in the early days of the 80s, I had tapes like Saxon and Thin Lizzy and Judas Priest tapes. and Phil Lynott solo stuff. But for me, so how I consume music, I want to answer that first of all, is basically we've got so many avenues to take in. I don't consume it sitting in a room. I got quality headphones, AirPods, and I've got the AirPod Max, the overheads. These are Sony's right there. These are pretty decent. But for me, the sound quality has to be perfect. And it's just from Apple Music and in my pocket. So I am that guy that has gone completely from physical product to the thousand. Steve Jobs actually said 1,000 songs in your pocket from the first iPod. Now I've got 77 million songs in my pocket, and that's how I consume the music. But the discovery, and walking the dogs, fucking around the house, working. I listen to a lot of music when I work. I work in real estate, and when I'm concentrating really hard on legal contracts, I'm listening to Pantera, Black Sabbath, death metal, Kiss.
How can you do that? I don't know how you do that.
It just focuses my mind. I can't even explain it.
It's amazing.
It's unbelievable. I'm legal contracts, right? And these things have to.
Yeah.
I can't fuck them up, But the other side of that is that and how I discover music is a couple of ways. Obviously, I go on the usual sites like Blabbermouth and Brave Words and Knotfest, and I go on a few of them. I basically consume it from different directions, and I sign up for a lot of bands on Instagram, so I'll follow the bands to get constant updates. But what I do is I jump into iTunes, and then I'll check the just two genres, rock and metal. If it's not rock and metal, I ain't listening. I don't care. So I'll drop the menu. And then I'll just search for upcoming new whatever, and I'll just start randomly listen to bands I've never heard before. And then I'll listen to it, and then 10 seconds in, I go, nope, or who are these guys? And then I'll take out my phone and go, produced by, or bass player is, or whatever. Say, okay, these are worth checking out. So I'll spend time discovering stuff that I want to hear. And then and YouTube is a great way to do that too. If you type in one band you like, they're going to give up suggested. So, and it's impossible to take in everything, because no matter how diligent you are going after new music and give it a shot, that always, for one band you discover, there's 10 you won't discover. So you can't catch it all. I just do as much as I can. But I listen to the equivalent of probably 2 CDs per day every day. Like, absolutely. And trying to fit in podcasts on top of it. So consumed by rock and metal all the time. I even got Geezer Butler's book right there next to me. So
nice.
It's all over me.
No, you're great about, you mentioned a good thing there, an important thing, I should say. It is, you're right. It's impossible to take it all in and to listen to everything. And that's the struggle. Sometimes I get frustrated at that, because I'm like, I want to, we all want to, right? Yeah, I mean, there's so much music coming out. You want to hear it all, and not just hear it all. You want to digest it all, but you can't. Right. There's just not enough time in a day. There's too much stuff out there, and it really is the songs that really just grab you initially, that has a certain riff or a hook that you're just like, whoa, those are the ones that stick, that you're gonna wind up listening to and really spend a lot of your time listening to. It's just, it's one of those things. I always wanted something like this. I used to dream about having this, like you said, jukebox in a pocket thing with thousands of songs or whatever, millions of songs. And we do. And we have it, and now it's just like, it's great, but how do you, there's no really way to sort of navigate through everything. It's just
it can be overwhelming, and you miss it. I mean, I'm looking at my, just going back over the week, and I have it recently listened to, right? So, Flying Colors, which is Mike Portnoy's band, Jimi Hendrix, Ectomorph, we're going to talk about that, Sleep Token, Wigwam, of all bands.
Oh, wow.
Chrysanthemum, Dayside, Night Demon, Warbringer, Forbidden, Revolution Saints, like Bruce Dickinson, Sebastian Bach. I'm all over the place. I mean, good rock and metal to me is good rock and metal. I don't jump into a genre and just stick to it. I'm literally all spectrums. Yeah,
no, and you brought up a good name right there, Ectomorph. Just to let people know, the plan is this should happen. But yes, we're going to be interviewing Zoli from Ectomorph for this week's episode, and I discovered Ectomorph really just a handful of years ago. Chris Aiken actually was raved about him. I never heard of them.
Yep.
And then after going, and then when he told me about him, I checked into him. He said, "Yeah, if you like Soulfly, you're gonna love Ectomorph." And Slipknot too. If you like those two bands, they're very much in that realm.
That's right.
And what amazes me about them, man, I mean, they're obviously, if people don't know them, they're from Hungary. They're Hungarian groove sort of '90s metal band, like I just said, in the the vein of a Pantera and Slipknot and Soulfly. And but they've been around for 30 years, these guys. 30 fucking years. I mean, it's kind of funny, one of the guys on our network here, Lord Nelson, who was, used to sing for Stuck Mojo. I was listening to an episode he just did with Bones, the original vocalist from Stuck Mojo, and they both have known each other since middle school, which is it's crazy that he took over from him. But yeah, so they're good friends, and they did a cool episode this week with Bones on there, and he was talking about when Lord was talking about when he was with Stuck Mojo, how he was touring with Ectomorph, and that was about 20 years ago, almost. So
yeah, wow.
Yeah, so but really good band.
I
I mean, I've been really getting into, listening to their stuff, and about 10, 15 years ago, they sounded more like Soulfly. Like I said, now these days they really remind me sort of a Slipknot band. But what that got me thinking too is really it proves that longevity is in art. I believe is the key. We touched upon this last week with Eric from Ember. And he was saying how, they've been together for 10 years, putting out an album, and now they've had a bunch of EPs. It took them 10 years to get to this point and to get finally noticed, and that's what it is these days. More than ever, you've got to have that longevity. I mean, there was a time, for instance, in the 90s, for example, right, when we were talking about earlier, bands would jump into it, put out an album or two, tour or two, boom, you're not a new band anymore. That just isn't the case anymore, and that's why we see so many bands with no original members, and that's why branding's everything. Band versus brand, right? Bob Nalbandian's great documentary really went into that and how it's all about that. And that's why you see these bands with no original members still going, because you can't just stop and start over again. And it's just why? That means you wasted all that time, and it's going to take another 10 years to build something up again. And musicians just don't have the patience to do it. I don't blame them, because it takes forever. You got to start that brand and build it up, and it's just a hassle. And why do it? You
do, and I think, but this is, and I think podcasting is where these bands get their platform. This is where they get their voice. We give them a voice. We give them 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever they need, and hopefully then they gravitate towards new. I mean, I'm not saying we're broadcasting to millions. We're not. That's not my point. But if they keep doing prominent podcasts, and the word does get out there, and hopefully, again, our job is to spread the word, and hopefully somebody will see this and go, Ectomorph, what kind of a name is that, and check them out and go, God damn, these guys are good. Because if you like Cavalier, Soulfly, Slipknot, there's no reason you're not going to like this, and those bands have got big followings, so there's no reason why those fans won't pick this.
Yes, no, I agree with you. So, we'll get ready to kind of go into our news piece. I know you got something you want to bring up, a few things, but before we go into that, just real quick, I just want to say, I want to give my condolences to the family. I'm wearing this Leeway shirt. The guitarist Michael Gibbons from Leeway, a guy who I've interviewed here on Aftershocks back in September. And me and Bob Nalbandian did an episode with him on Skull Sessions a couple of years ago. And he also included both of us in the Leeway documentary that came out 2 months ago. He just passed away a week or so ago, the day before the Bob's anniversary of his death on the 29th. He passed. So I just want to, say, give my condolences to Mike. Mike was a great guy. Leeway is one of my favorite, bands of all time. We're one of those bands, just a great. They were in the New York hardcore realm, but they were really a thrash band. If you listen to them, it's a pure thrash band. They were very influential on, Power Trip. They were kind of like Power Trip. If you like Power Trip, you'd love Leeway. You should go. 2 great albums. They had this one, Born to Expire, another one, Desperate Measures. I know today there was another death that just happened to James Kotak. I don't know if you saw that right before.
I did, James Kotak and Tony Clarkin from Magnum.
That's right, Magnum. And they just put out a new album, Magnum.
They did. They were going to do a tour. They pulled a tour. He came out, I think, in December, saying he's not doing so good, but I didn't get anything from the press release and from him personally that he was that ill. And obviously, he died today, in James Kotak. And shame on me, actually, for last week when we broadcasted some of our shows. It was the anniversary of Phil Lynott's death. And I'm a huge, or Phil Lynott, depending on which part of the world you're in. But
which is it? Which is it? Is it Lynott? Is it Lynott or Lynott?
It's actually Lynott, but everybody calls him Lynott. I met his mom a couple of times. I got a few stories for the next one. On that, but I did, met her a few times over the years. But he would have been 74. So Phil Lynott of Thin Lizzy, probably one of my all-time favorite bands ever. But he would have been only 74. So he would have been still out there doing his thing. And then if you look at Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Bon Jovi, they all cite Europe are a huge influence. They all cite Thin Lizzy as that band that they go to, and I'd love to do a segment on Lizzie, or pick an album and pick it apart, whatever. So they were they were my introduction to rock and metal. I heard Thin Lizzy for the first time in 1981. I was walking past the room, heard "Do Anything You Want to Do" from the Black Rose album. I was, what the heck is this? And fast forward 40-something years, I'm talking to Matt.
There you go.
They were my introduction to everything that I love right now.
Yeah, no, that's great, man. Well, yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, you're right though. He would still be out there playing right now. I mean, when you see all these bands, like you say, for Magnum, the guy was 77 who just passed.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, and they just put out a new album. It's amazing. These guys are almost 80 years old putting out music. I mean, the Stones are playing. It's just,
that's right.
I mean, it just boggles my mind because I just think about growing up when I'd see my grandparents in their 70s and 80s. It's like, I mean, they weren't doing anything even close to that. They looked like they were, it was a whole. Yeah. It's amazing how, just kind of over time, it's I don't know. But being able to be up there on a stage in your 70s to play still, that's pretty
unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge Stones fan, but I know that their Hackney Diamonds, I think, is their new album that's getting rave reviews. Anybody have you seen the video, the one that they're driving down the Sunset Strip?
No.
You got to check it out. Neely and Chris are always talking. I think Neely said he watches it every day. And if you watch the video, you'll understand why he watches it every day, because you've got one of the hottest chicks you're ever likely to see.
That's
ever.
Probably why, G.
Yeah, well, it's definitely to do with that, right? She's definitely the eye candy, but it's a great song, and they're driving down Sunset Strip, and actually the billboards are looking at themselves back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. It's a great video, and I'm not a Stones fan, but damn, that's a good song. I might have to check out that album, Hackney Diamonds.
Something you do, a taste of know we're being